All right, so this course, we suppose that it will take about 6 weeks, plus or minus a week, thereabout, depending with the speed that we are going to adopt. But the goal is not just rushing through the course, the goal is you getting something out of the course. All right, so I have already introduced to you some link. Let me just open the link somewhere here. It's one of the tools that we are going to use for the purposes of taking notes. All right. So this is how my dashboard looks like once you are able to log in. And the reason why I shared with you this link is for you to be able to take down some notes. All right. So in case you have an alternative way of taking notes, well and good. If you don't, you can adopt in using this tool. It's a good tool that you're able to write down your notes and be able to access them from any device as long as it's connected to internet. All right. So in case we are taking notes for the current course, we can just talk about Python, just any title to help you distinguish between the items that you will have written down in this dashboard. All right. Then, of course, you can input. Maybe let's talk about introduction to Python. All right. That being a heading, you can just have something like H1, then include all the information that we are going to talk about. Introduction to Python. In case you need a heading 2, you can always include that. All right. In case you need to do something like doing a list, there is the list that usually have dots. All right. So quickly, there is this source button here. You can just come here, talk about an ordered list. That is, in case you are familiar with HTML, there is a little bit of HTML. Let me talk about hello world. Nothing much. All right, then you close your list there, right? So once you want to add another item, just press enter and the items will be added automatically, right? So in case you want to have numbers, you can simply change these with an O. All right, go back and continue numbering your stuff. All right, so basically you can apply quite a number of formattings in this document. All right, then in case you want probably to save it as a PDF, you can simply Control P to print, and it will give you a PDF of what you'll have added to this description field. But of course, remember to save your work. So you may not necessarily need to save a PDF, but you can always save your work. All right, can just show you some of my works here. All right, let me show you something. All right, something like this. In case I wanted to do a PDF, I just have that, and we see what we have here. Well formatted. So I'm able to save this as a PDF, share it with somebody. So that was a by the way. So in case you need to save your notes online, please use that. All right. So the next thing, as we start this program whereby we want to go through Python, and we are looking forward to becoming Python developers, it's good to have a goal. All right. So you're not just taking Python as a course because others are learning how to code. You need to have a goal, all right? And that goal can be either you want to be a web developer, you want to dive into data science, you want to dive into creating desktop applications. And I think to some extent, you may also find Python creating mobile applications, though it's not so popular along that line, all right? So you should have that purpose, all right? So basically, every other Python developer will go through the fundamentals. Then once done with the fundamentals, that's where they are now going to major on one of the Python applications. So I hope amongst us, we know what exactly we want to do with Python, because at the end of the day, we need to use the skills that we gain in these trainings to solve real life challenges. All right. So let us have that goal. And in case you are not sure which path to follow, we can have a conversation outside this call, and we are going to see where you can best fit in. And again, it's not harmful to dive in whichever applications. You can start with web dev, move to data, machine learning, AI, and all that. All right. So it's the high time we just look at a few of the Python applications. You can be a data scientist having gone through Python. All right. So there are some libraries that you focus on, and if you are taking note, you can mention about NumPy. We have Pandas. We have Matplotlib. We also have Seaborn, etc. So those are the few modules that you go through to uh, use Python in data science. Then, in case you want to be a web developer, once you are done with the basics, you can look at Django. We also have Flask, and I also think we have another one called Botlo. I'm not so sure. It's not so popular, but it's there. All right. Then we also have other concepts of machine learning, which you can also dive in. We have the libraries that facilitate that. So these are the applications of Python. So at least when taking this course, just look at what we have here and see where you can best apply the skills that you are going to get from this course. All right. All right. So just to have an overview of the course outline. So this is the course outline, and I believe I had already shared this with you. We are going to do introduction to Python, which we are currently doing. Then we also have another crucial topic, that is working with variables and data types, seeing how to assign data, giving giving names to data and all that. We're also going to look at control flow and conditionals, where you have to make decisions based on the data that you have, right? We're also going to have functions and modules. We are going to see how to create modules, that is custom modules, and also how to use the existing modules. And as I mentioned about the applications of Python, we have then quite a number of modules and libraries. So this is where we are at least going to look at a few of them and how to make use of them. We're also going to explore and see how Python handles files. We're also going to see how to handle errors under this topic called exception handling. Because again, if some errors happen in Python, your application is bound to break. So you have to handle those errors accordingly to prevent your application from crashing. Then we're also going to look at Python libraries, not so different from what we have here, but we are going to see the difference. And finally, we look at the date and time. So as we look at all these topics, think of how you can solve a real life challenge using what we cover. And we are going to look at some real life challenges after each and every topic, so that we are able to really appreciate whatever we are running here. Then just a quick overview of the history of Python. Uh, the first release was done in 1991, but the creation started in the late 1980s. So if we look at the purpose, it was designed to be a high level and easy to read programming language. And I believe I have interacted with a number of programming languages, and Python happens to be an easy language and that is an easy language to learn and appreciate. So we are going to see. And for the name origin, it was named after the British comedy series. we have Monty Python's Flying Circus. So its origin is not from a snake, because when you just mention Python, the first thing that might come into our minds is the reptile, the snake, all right? But this is the origin of Python. All right. So after just mentioning the few things about Python, we would want to see how to interact with Python on our PCs, because at the end of the day we need to interact with Python on our PCs. We need to write down some lines. We need to solve some problems, some challenges, and we are going to do that by writing down some code. All right, so let me just move to the next slide. The next slide. All right. Of course, we have mentioned a little about why we want to run Python. And well, we have these reasons. I mentioned that you should have your personal reason why you want to run Python. Then applications, we have already covered that. And then we now want to install and set up Python and also set up an IDE. All right. So as I had mentioned previously, um, for you to make the best out of this training, you'll need to have access to a laptop or a desktop with internet connection. All right. All right. So we are going to install Python on our machine, and I mentioned, as we had mentioned earlier, that we need access to either a laptop or a desktop with internet connection. All right, because it wouldn't sit so well if you just listen to me doing the training and it ends there. You need to be doing some practice. And just to mention it again, for you to get the best out of this course, it will fully depend on your personal effort. You need to go an extra mile, look for challenges out there, try to solve them with code until it makes sense. We do not cram code. We do not sing songs so that we remember some lines of code. The thing is to familiarize the different concepts and see how you can use them to solve real life challenges. All right. So we are going to visit python.org. This is the official Python website. All right. And it will depend with operating system that you are currently using. All right. For those on Windows, this is where we need to go. Just visit python.org. Then we have this download button. Then click on what we have here. All right. So this will download the latest version. But in my case, it has already detected my operating system. So um, it will download the file that I can use to install on my Linux machine. I'm currently operating on Ubuntu. So if you're on Windows, just click and download whatever we have here. Of course, if you are operating on uh, either Mac OS or Linux, I'll do a demonstration of how you can do that on Linux. All right. You may not be aware if Python exists on your machine. We need to check that so that we do not end up downloading the software that we do not need, right? So for you to check on the Python version, just open either your terminal or command prompt. So I think for those on Windows, you can just search for CMD. For those on Linux, you can just open your terminal. All right. So this is how we are going to check for the version. So you can have a version, right? So if we check, we see that Python is not installed. So in terms of versioning, this represented version 2. All right. So even before we probably complete downloading, if you haven't started, let me just mention something retro about checking on the version. All right. So I mentioned that uh, if you check Python and it's not there, this represents Python version 2. But we are now currently working with Python version 3. So there are some cases that you may check for this version and you see something Python 3 point something, then that should be okay. All right. But in my case, I should be checking now that I couldn't find any version of Python here, I should now check Python 3. All right. And this confirms to me that I already have Python installed. All right. So in case both of these commands do not show anything like we have here, then proceed and download, and we are going to go through the process of installation. And that is for those on Windows. For those on Linux, we are just going to use some commands here to get Python installed on our system. If we have anyone operating on Linux, then you can just have something like sudo apt update. That is to update your package repository. I'll have a hash there for my case. I don't need to update that, but for you, just ensure to run this command. Once the package repository has been, or rather has updated, just then run this command. All right, so I also don't need to execute this. I have Python installed. So we have these two commands for those operating on Linux. All right, I was actually not seeing the comments here. Thank you. Thank you for your confirmation. All right, please don't be left behind. And you should at least get an output showing that Python is installed. Whether you're on Windows, whether you're on Linux, anyone operating on Mac OS. All right. So in the meantime, let me just mention something so that we can also give it time to download. I'll be explaining why we are doing this. As we wait for Isaac to download, we should also download something here. All right. Please visit that website and download. That is, if you don't have a code editor. All right. So if you have a code editor of your choice, you have been using probably coding using any other language, you do not need this. But in case you're probably new to code editors, please download what you have here. So once you visit this page, just click on, so in my case, I'm seeing DEB and RPM because I'm operating on Ubuntu. So in your case, for those on Windows, you probably see a button to download a Windows installer. So please do that and confirm once done. In case you have your preferred code editor, you can also confirm that on chat. Then we can continue in like 5 minutes. So Isaac, please share your screen. Let me use yours for the demonstration. So basically, click on the file that has been downloaded. Still on this download page. Okay, all right. So just let me see. So just check the two options down there. So then let's work with the first option. Install now. All right. I believe the others are set. In case you are not set, you can just. I believe you have seen how we have done for Isaac, so you are able to appreciate what has been done. So you can follow the same procedure. Ensure to select that option stating that add Python to path. We are going to start interacting with the Python console, see how it looks like, and just write some few commands. Click on that disable path length. All right, so once you do that, just click on close. Please check if Python is installed using the same, we talked of Python version. If that doesn't work, then check with Python 3 version. So you are supposed to open your CMD All right, so I believe with the having followed that procedure, I believe Python is installed for all of us. All right, and besides just checking the for the version, somebody will just open their either their terminal or command line, and by just typing, for instance, if I type Python, I press enter. If Python is installed, it will automatically um, open the Python console. All right. But in my case, as I mentioned, I will be using Python 3. If I press enter, so it should open this console. All right. And of course, give some information here about the version of Python and all that. All right. So you can do this to open Python console. All right. So I hope we all have we are able to access the Python command line, right? Do we have something like this on our screen? Either just type in Python 3. If you get it, well and good. Others can just type in Python. If they get something like this talking about Python 3, we are good to go. Or you can also search for the Python IDE by just pressing the Windows key and searching for that. All right, so this is the very basic console that we are going to be using to, well, not writing applications because we are not able to do applications that will require multiple lines. So this, let me just talk of it like it's for testing purposes. All right, but again, if we want to do multiple lines, we can do that here, but it's a bit stressful. All right, but don't worry. The very first thing that we need to appreciate is how to instruct our instruct Python to write down something. All right. I'm sure we have all heard about print. All right. So we are going to instruct Python to type in something, and it's a common thing to type to print hello world. All right. So this should be the very first program that you are able to appreciate. All right. So if you just type in print, then use those brackets, then in quotes, type in whatever you want to print in there, then ensure to cross using the these quotes and the bracket, then you should get the output. All you need to appreciate here is how to do it, because if we try out some other options, just playing around with the word print, say you want to print hello world, let us just see if these options will work. I hope you can see the different errors that we are getting. All right, let me just have that. All right, I hope we can all see the errors. So this is the syntax to use. All right, so anything that you want to print must be in quotes unless it's a variable. All right, so think of, we want maybe to print something like the sum of two numbers. We want to print, say 2 plus 2 plus 3, and we cross that with those brackets, press enter, we get 5. So somebody will ask, why didn't we have these in quotes? And that's where the topic about data types will come in. But we are not going to jump into data types for now, but just to mention a little about why we didn't have the quotes. So for the quotes, we use them on strings. So think of a string being a combination of characters. So these characters could be alphabets. We also have special characters like at, exclamation, and all that. And we can also have numbers like 2, 3 being strings. Because look at this, we can have print, then we want to print 2 into quotes, then we want to add that to 3 into quotes, and then we cross that. If you press enter, we get 23. But in real sense, 2 plus 3 is 5. But because we added this as a string. So it just took 2 and concatenated that with 3. That's where we get 23. So I believe we are now able to see the reason why we do not put numbers into quotes, maybe when doing some of these operations. All right. Um, right. So I hope for now at least we are able to appreciate how the word print comes in. All right. So if we have, for instance, name, and okay, just pardon me, because we are we are going to be consuming some concepts that we intend to consume in other topics, but we can as well mention them here. For instance, we want to have a variable named name. All right, so that could be my name, that could be your name. So in my case, I'll be talking about my name. Let me just talk about Dan, and I want to print Dan on my screen. All right, so I can have something like print. So in this case, I will not be talking about name in quotes, because if I do that, let's see what we get. All right, so we are going to get my exact or rather the whatever is in quotes here, but I did not intend to have that on the screen. I intended to have done being printed on the screen. So instead of doing that, this is what we have. So I'll have name which is not in quotes, right? Because name has been declared as a variable name. All right, so think of something like age. 15 years old. I need to print that on the screen. So remember, I'm not gonna do print age, because if I do that, see what we get, right? Okay, right. So in this case, I need to print age. All right. In that case, I get 15. All right. I wanted to at least clear the screen. As we continue, I'll give you a command that you can use to clear the screen in case your cursor goes down here. All right, for now I will use that approach. So at least for now we are able to appreciate the term print. It's common in Python, and if you have interacted with any other coding language, you will interact you have to or you meet a term that will be used to print something on the screen. It might not necessarily be print. In case you have interacted with something like JavaScript, we have console.log. Which other language have you interacted with? Maybe we can mention what we have experienced. I mean, in terms of you want to print something on the screen. Anyone who has interacted with a different language? All right. So for JavaScript, that is it. Others do have their own way of printing something on the screen. All right. So using this same console, we can try to do some arithmetics. We can try to do some arithmetics. So think of addition. We are going to talk about something little about, say, addition. We want to add some two numbers. We have already done that. So we are basically using Python as a calculator. So think of 30 plus, let me talk of 30 plus 40. We see it's 70, right? In here, we um, can talk about sum. Let's add some two numbers, 45 plus 55. All right. So we want to print the sum of two numbers, but then we have declared a variable called sum. So if we print, then talk about sum, all right, we get 100. And I believe you can confirm that the addition of these two numbers is 100. So not just small numbers, you can think of large numbers, and the add operation will work. All right, so we may want to subtract two numbers, as we mentioned. Just think of print. Let's have 40 minus 30, we expect to have 10. There we go. And remember, I'll still repeat it over and over again so that at least we can appreciate the concept. When you are dealing with numbers, you do not put them in quotations unless you have a different meaning. If we try to do that, for instance, in here, we have 40 minus 30. Let's see how that goes. All right. It's not even able um, to decode that. Probably for addition, that will work because it's all about putting these numbers together, not adding them, but just putting them together. That is concatenating these two strings. All right. That's why we get something like 40, 30 as opposed to maybe 70. Right. So we can use Python to do subtraction. We can also do division. Let me talk about 20 divided by 2. All right, so this is what we use. All right, then we can also, which other operation are we leaving behind? We have addition, subtraction, division. Let's try to use this percentage sign. All right, so this percentage is supposed to give us the remainder, what remains when you divide 20 by 2. All right, so if we try to divide it by 3, we expect 2 to remain because 3 goes to 6 times because of 18, so 2 remains. All right, so this, I think this should be basic maths if you happened to interact with mathematics at that level. Then right, all right, then we can also have, let me talk of print. Let me talk about 3. For instance, we want to square 3 or raise it to some number, right? So we can try to do that. Say 3 power 2. So 3 power 2, 3 power 2. Let's try that. I think that should give us 9. All right. So for you to do power, and remember power, we used to have there is that symbol. I'm not sure, I can't recall its name, but I believe you know what power means. All right. We forgot to mention multiplication. Multiplication, we talk about 1 star. All right. So for this power, you do not necessarily need to have power 2. You can also have power 3. Just any number. Should be, say, a number n raised to power x, or whichever digit that you have there. All right. So we can have 30 and the number becomes bigger and bigger. All right. Okay. All right. So something else that I may want us to mention. Okay, let me just use this method to clear my screen. It's not the best, but let me just use it. Okay, any questions so far? Am I moving so fast? Are we getting it? All right, thank you for confirmation. All right, so we have just seen how to undertake the various operations on Python. Like you're able to do addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, raising a number to a power another number, and all that. All right, so something else we may want to well, just to mention that these concepts may feel so simple, right? But when you are creating, say, a program, you may be working on a program that requires to do some arithmetics. So these are where those additions and subtractions will come in. All right, and let me just think of some scenarios here. Let me show you something. So we have a number, and this number should come from the user. We usually use input. We want to prompt the user to give us something. All right, and let me name this number age. All right, we want to ask the user to enter your age. All right. All right, so as we do that, like the instruction needs to be under quotations. All right, as we have done that, also ensure to use those brackets. So once we do that, see what we have. Once you input that, press enter and you'll be prompted to enter your age. All right. So this may not be practical in some applications because it will depend with the application that you are working with. So instead of input, if you are working on, say, a desktop application, you will have given the user an input field that will give them an opportunity to input their age. If you are working on a website, you will require some form to correct this data. So this is mainly usable on this console. All right. So we need to input some age here. All right. So if I talk about being 10 years, press enter. All right. And we have our age being saved in a variable named age. All right. So if I print age, all right, I think we are okay. Seems it's already an integer, but let me just see. All right. So okay, we are going to look at what this means. So we are basically trying uh, to touch bits on data types. All right, but we are going to look at it in details. So in here, I just wanted to know the data type of age, because for instance, as we have seen, we have printed age and we see 10. All right. By just looking at it, we think that 10 is a number. So what will happen if we try to we print age plus say 20. So if you are to be asked, what do you expect as the output? Anyone with an idea? If we are to print, let me just put some spacing in here. But then no harm in adding some space. So we want to print age, we want to add 20. Anyone with an idea of what we expect on this to get on the console? Any idea? Right, we have assigned our age to a variable named age. Then I have input that my age is 10 and I need to add 20 to my age here. What output do we expect? Any guess? We are running, so yeah, all right, 30. Somebody else? Any idea? All right, let's see. All right, so we get an error. All right, so the reason why we got an error is because we are not able to do an addition of uh, say string and an integer. All right, so by string I mean this 10 or whatever age that we captured here. By default, that's a string. So if we want to convert it, or if we want to undertake an operation and use this age, and of course we expected by talking about age, we expect a number. How old are you? We expect a number. All right. So if we want to say we want to see how old you'll be in 5 years time, we would take what you have given us and try to add, say in 5 years time we want to add 5, or how old you are 5 years ago. So we will try to do some arithmetics in there, but then we are not able to do that directly because the data that is in here is a string. And this is how to check on a variable's data type. Well, it could be a variable. You can also use the data directory without necessarily assigning it to a variable. But remember, if we do that, we are going to get this as an integer. But this one is a string, simply because this is an input that we received from the user. All right. So if we want to kind of have this age as an integer, right? So let me show you. So we want, okay, let me go back here. So we wanted to add age to 20. So there are quite a number of ways we can approach this. One of them is by doing the conversion at this stage. All right. So we want to convert this age to an integer, right? Because the problem is not with the 20, the problem is with this age. So the way to convert a string to an integer is by just passing it through that function. All right. And remember, we are not able to convert all strings to integer, because if I say my name is Daniel, I mean, I assign, say, my name is equals to Daniel. We can't convert that to an integer, right? We are just converting age because we can see we expected age to be an integer, but the system recognizes that as a string. So by doing this, let's see how it goes. All right. So we get our 30. All right. So we are now trying to add two integers, and that's why this one works. So in this case, you can do the conversion at this stage. Alternatively, let me take you back here. Alternatively, you can subject this to the conversion by having everything that you correct from the user as an integer. All right. So if we do that, let me talk about 20. Then I want to print, let me just use this. Okay, not that one. I want to do that. All right. We see this one works because we have already converted the input to an integer. All right. So just to prepare you to a topic that we are going uh, to go through, let me show you something. So look, we are trying to convert whatever the user inputs to an integer. So if I do that, then I input my name, right? Press enter. We see that we are not able to convert that to an integer. All right. So in case this was, say, in a desktop application, in a web application, so your application will crash because of what you have here. So you should be able to handle these errors accordingly, because these are errors that you expect. That it's not always that you'll tell a user to input their say their email and they gives you exactly their email. Sometimes they input a phone number in the field that we expected them to give us an email. So in such a case, your system will crash. Otherwise, you need to handle those errors accordingly. All right. Any question up to that point? All right. Are we getting it? Is it interesting? How is it? I mean, I believe probably it's your first language. So I would want to hear your feedback. Are we moving so fast? Are the concepts making sense? All right. So all you need to at least take note of is for you to add, say, two numbers, at least have them as both strings or have them as integers or numbers in general. Only when you are able to get the expected output. So you tried adding the age as it is here with the as you corrected it from the input to say a number, and you probably got something like this, eh? So uh, all you needed is to cast the age to an integer. I hope, let me just paste this on screen so that, I mean on chat, so that you can just compare it with what you have. I mean, we are casting the age to an integer and thereby converting the age to an integer, right? And this will only work if this age was initially a number. So in case your user did input their name instead of the age, this will still not work. All right. All right. I would want us to, yes, please. Yes, please. All right. So, yes, I'm seeing it. Uh, okay, the age. All right. So let me ask, have you, okay, is it saved as the entitled.py? All right. So please click on that drop down next to that run button. So, okay, they are talking about run Python file. Okay, please click on that. Click on that option. So down here, what do we have? Is there an option to type in anything? All right. Okay. Allow me to touch on that once we get to VS Code. But in the meantime, let me just let me just show you how to do it. Please go back to the VS Code. We will troubleshoot that option. Okay, so what do we have here? So just put your cursor on the terminal section. Okay, are you able to open a new terminal? Press on this plus button here. Let me see how it behaves. All right. Okay. Try to let's talk about ls. Type in ls. Let me see the output. So do you see the file named untitled.py? Actually, it's in the downloads. So, all right. So change your directory to downloads. Just cd from the same command line. Just cd. Let's do cd o small. That is a small o. W. Press on the tabs button. Let's see if it helps. You pressed on the tabs button. All right. Press enter. Okay. Then type in Python. So are you operating on Python or Python 3? Okay, all right. Please exit, exit. Use exit and close with the brackets. All right, so just use the up arrow. All right, have a space. Start typing untitled. I think this should be a capital U, is it? Untitled, then you can use tab to autocomplete. I'm not sure it shouldn't be a text. So just remove txt and put py. Press enter. What did it say? All right, let's okay. I think probably that name, okay, all right. Let's click on file. Let me see. Press on file. Top. Do we have the option of save as? For now, we can just save it in downloads, to make our work easier. But we are going to see how to be navigating through all those directories, Okay, all right. Then just come back here to the terminal section. Type in Python space hello, capital H. You can use tab to autocomplete. All right, press enter. All right, then you can do your stuff now from that point. All right, we are going to review how to to work with VS Code or whichever code editor that we find favorite. So that's probably a topic for tomorrow. All right. So before we close for today's session, I wanted to just mention something retro. We will still pick it up from that point tomorrow. Um, in Python, and once even you advance to whichever application of Python that you'll be advancing in, you will be assigning your data to some variable names. All right. So, for instance, age. If you want to capture the age from a user, you will be assigning it to some variable name, right? So it's a crucial concept. We need to appreciate the names that you should use, all right? So I'm sure when probably in high school, we as we worked on some formulas, we would maybe talk of x equals 10, y equals 30 and all that. So we don't have a problem with that in Python, right? But think of you create an application that will be managed by another person, right? So it becomes very hard. For instance, you create that application and you assign age to a variable x, right? Then that application is to be managed by somebody else or even you. If you try debugging such an application, it will be so hard for you to try and start relating what you assigned to X, what was supposed to be Y, what was supposed to be, those funny names. So you may find us, or you may find me using x, y, and y in some of my demonstration, or even some other variable names that do not have a meaning per se. But the right thing to do is giving your variable names some descriptive names, so that in case you I want us to not just to view whatever we are doing on this console. I mean, you will be writing hundreds of lines of code, right? So in that case, you need to uniquely identify the variables that you are working with. So it wouldn't be so fair using x and y, right? Okay. All right. So uh, there are some uh, there are some conventions. Well, it will not you will not get errors in doing this. There are some conventions that you should at least try to follow, so that you ensure your work is clean and easy to understand. All right. Okay. Pardon me for today. I have to exit and then looking back. There is a command that should help us clear the screen. Don't worry. We are going to have that tomorrow. All right. So maybe this is just for your own notes. As I mentioned, there are some do's and don'ts when it comes to naming Python variables. One is that the names should be descriptive. All right. So when you want to make use of age, please don't use x and y's and all those letters. At least have something like age. You know, or depending with that situation or scenario that you are working with, you may need to add some other word to age to make it have the full meaning, but at least let it be descriptive. All right. Then in case the next point in the things that you're supposed to do, you can adopt what do we call it, you can adopt a snake case or camel case naming convention, or even use some uppercase. For instance, let's talk about her age. Maybe it's somewhere you're fetching the age based on gender. I mean, you want to assign whichever age that comes in. If they selected their gender to be female or male, then you assign the age. All right. So these are a convention that is allowed and recommended. Right. It doesn't mean that if you talk about her age as one name, it's a syntax error. It is not just recommended. All right. So you can opt to use something like that. Also think of something like say her age if you have to shout. So you can also adopt something like this, but then you should avoid something like this. I mean, when you mix lowercase and uppercase. All right. Then the next thing, at least, so the next thing is to avoid some reserved keywords. Actually, that is why I opened this, because we have some reserved keywords that you should never use to assign your variables. All right. So we have a list and we are going to interact with some of these keywords, right? So you shouldn't find yourself assigning anything to something like and, class, break. I mean, whatever you see here. Maybe let me see if there is a longer list here. I mean, we have quite a big list here of some reserved keywords. And probably just about recommendations, if you attempt to assign any one of these, you will get errors. All right. For instance, let me try to do and. I try to assign something to and. And is equals to 5. You see, if we look, try to scan through the error, let me see, warning, and anyway, the error doesn't come out so well, but at least you should know that and is a reserved keyword. Maybe let me just use add an s. I mean, it works. So it recognizes that and is a reserved keyword, and as we have used it here, it's not in its rightful place. All right. So let me just share this with you so that you can see a list of the reserved keywords. So as you go about naming your variables, please don't use what we have there. All right. Then something else I need to mention. Okay. Right. I think that's enough to note about assigning of variables. All right. And that should mark the end of today's session. I think tomorrow we will start with looking at data types, because when we talk about of variables, we are going to be assigning data types to variables. So they go hand in hand. So at least for now, we have seen how to name the different data types that we will be mentioning. All right. So just go through what we have here. And just to mention, let me just give a link here. All right, so we have some notes here which we can be going through, and of course we also have some exercises that I would want us to be checking for our own understanding. All right, because uh, as I mentioned, the goal is not just going through the content. The goal is you being able to use Python to solve a problem or two. That is a real life challenge. All right.